What is up? How are you? My name is Brianna, and we are in a series about rebuilding after 40. I am now a luxurious 43, and it's taking me a while to figure out how to navigate through the trenches of loss and change and pivots. But I'm realizing that when I got to 40, I just developed a superpower around rebuilding and redefining who I am. And so I want to share how to rebuild trust in yourself after a series of bad decisions, because your girl has made quite a few bad decisions in her life. But gone are those days, okay? Gone are those days. But here's the truth, you do not wake up one day and realize that you don't trust yourself anymore. This is a very slow process and happens over a significant amount of time. And it happens when you start to override your gut and override your intuition. And after turning 40, I realized I cannot keep picking the same lesson in a different age and a different body. Your girl is tired. You can't do it. So, I'm going to walk you through how I rebuilt self-trust within myself in order to make decisions that help me constantly feel more at peace with my health, with my mind, with my emotions, with my body, with my money, with my time. So if you don't know me, my name is Brianna. I am a 20 plus year licensed clinical psychotherapist. But beyond that, I am also a multifaceted mentor, working with 6 and 7 figure CEOs and entrepreneurs to help them bridge the gap between the success in their professional life with where they're struggling and feeling stuck in their personal life. I'm also an author, a speaker, a stylist, and I got a word for you today. But in order to get to that word, I want to take you through some of my patterns that were proof that I wasn't trusting myself first, so that you can have a mental checklist for yourself that has you explore where you lack the trust that you need within yourself to break these patterns and habits that are keeping you stuck and holding you hostage. Now, when I talk about patterns, one that you're going to hear a lot is my choice of men. Now, I'm married to a king, and that man is amazing. However, it took me a lot of ugly ducklings and frogs to get to this point. But I chose those type of men for a very long time for a reason, because I saw potential, because I had the ability to fix things that were broken, because I understood what brokenness was like. I trusted words before behavior. I consistently overrode my intuition. And I thought that hoping for things to get better, hoping for change, I got that confused with discernment for some odd reason back then. But realistically, it was because I just did not have a foundation in Christ yet. So I was making very emotionally driven decisions, and decisions made out of like a brokenhearted and wounded place. But I also, more than anything, wanted to trust them, because I felt like if they could show me who they are, and if they could be the people they said they were, then I could trust like I made a good decision because they're showing me I made a good decision, versus me feeling deep down in my gut that I made a good decision. And so pattern number one was choosing emotionally unavailable men. Um, I trusted the fantasy of these dudes. I trusted the possibility of what could be, but I had no trust in myself. Now, the second pattern that I oftentimes struggled with was self sabotaging through overspending, undersaving, underinvesting. And so I would spend money in order to feel better, in order to curb loneliness, in order to react to anxiety I was having. I shopped to create like stability in this successful persona I was trying to perform in for a very long time. And I spent money as a way to connect to other people because I felt very disconnected from myself. That would be, going out to dinners multiple times a week. That was going out for drinks, going out multiple times a week. Again, shopping, doing things, planning trips when I was putting them all on the credit card all the time. And so I was like truly at that point in my life medicating for pleasure, to get out of discomfort. And honestly, all of those things again kept me further from myself, right? So there was a distance I was keeping from my inner needs and the need to trust myself and what was happening. Now, the third pattern that I had of proof of not trusting myself was making decisions backed by fear. I had a fear of being alone. I had a fear of time running out. I had a fear of having to start over. I had a fear that nobody would ever choose me and that I wasn't desirable enough to stay. And so what I thought was confidence and how I was acting was actually a deep level of fear. And so a lot of my responses were backed by that fearful place. And what do you know about what happens from a fearful place? You are seeking control. You are seeking to avoid repeating a past experience. You are seeking to predict an outcome. None of those things scream self trust whatsoever. Okay. So, what are the things that you're doing that are going against you showing, not saying, but you showing that you trust yourself? I want you to get curious with that because those decisions, they cost me. They cost me my peace. They cost me my health. Listen, there was a point where I was in a relationship with someone that I should not have been. And minus this pimple on my face right now, I have always had very clear skin. And as I was dating this man, it was about 3 months in, I started breaking out in cystic acne. Like, I mean, my whole face was covered in white and red pimples. And the moment we broke up, my face cleared up. Like the moment. So I was under such a high cortisol response in that relationship that it showed through having pimples on my face. And so it also cost me money, obviously. It cost me time. It cost me emotional stability. It cost me my sanity. Y'all, there were points where I was doing things and I would be going crazy, because I didn't have a handle on what was happening and I was feeling so much further away from myself every time. And honestly, I know that a lot of you can relate to this. Way too many tears and upsets over things that didn't belong in my life anyway, things, people, places, whatever. So bad decisions don't always just cost you financially. They cost your actual nervous system. They cost you your safety. And safety is one of the strongest pillars you have to have within yourself in order to trust yourself. If you don't feel safe in yourself, how can you trust it, right? How can you trust any of your decisions? So when you override your intuition enough times, you start to feel unsafe in your body and you start to question everything that you're doing. And this is because all of the decisions that you are currently making, just like I had been making, were all based out of survival. They were based out of fear. They were based out of a need to prove myself. They were based out of seeking some sort of validation, right? So you get to take a step back and look at how you are currently making decisions. Are they backed by you? Or are they backed by an unmet need, right? Now, everything changed for me when I turned 41. I don't know what happened. Well, I do. It was the last BS relationship that I was ever going to be in. And like I told you, that relationship will have its own episode because it deserves like a Dateline series. But it was so inconsistent. It was so all over the place. The way that it blew up was insane. And I had it. I literally had it. Like, that is it. I'm done. I am not going to do this anymore. I can't play with um, believing words and not seeing behaviors. I can't play with giving up so much of myself to receive nothing in return. I can't play anymore about the way that I thought about myself at the time. And it was like I had it moment. And I I I I I knew that this was like a do or die for me. I was either going to live in my 40s repeating everything that I had done in my 30s, or I was going to do something differently. That like I had no option. And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Okay? So rebuilding trust doesn't look just like healing. It looks like deciding. You are going to have to, my friend, if today is the day that you're listening to this and you have been stewing in why do I keep doing the same thing? Why don't I trust in myself? Why don't I believe in myself? What is wrong? Why do I keep having these same lessons in a different lifetime? Like every year is the same, even though I say I want it to be different. I'm here to tell you, you just have to make a decision. Stop asking yourself why. Stop looking for the answer as to what you need to do. Just decide. Just decide. Okay. Now, I built my self trust in a series of things. And I want to give you these tools because they may seem very benign. They may seem stupid to some of you, but I used it and it worked. And I use it with my clients and it works. And first and foremost, as the intelligent, successful woman that you are, you have to stop beating yourself up. You can't beat yourself up because the moment that you self blame, self criticize, punish, all you're doing is giving your brain permission to hold on to those words and hold on to those things that you said and then live from that place. No more attacking, no more replaying mistakes in your head, no more shame spirals. You've got to start catching your negative self talk and reframing it immediately. So, the moment that I recognized that I was starting to do that easily is I was walking the dogs one day. This was a couple years ago. And I had this, my automatic thought came in and was like, you're never going to find somebody. You always pick the wrong people. Like, what are you thinking? Kind of like tisk, tisk, tisk. And immediately I had this other part of me come up, the very godly part of me come up and say, you are constantly doing the best you can and you're always willing to learn. No mistake goes without growth. Keep doing your best. And I immediately felt my shoulders drop and I felt my chest, puff up with pride. And it was like, that's right. I do my best. And I am learning and I am doing things differently every single time. Um, and so having your self-talk aligned with who you truly are is going to help you shift out of these patterns and start to trust yourself. How would you ever trust somebody that talks to you poorly? You don't. You'd hate them. But you do it to yourself? Like, make it make sense, right? So you can only build as much trust in yourself as the words that you speak to yourself. Number two is I started listening to my gut. Now, I had made a joke for many, many years that I have a lot of intuitive, psychic-y. They have predicted things that happen. They have said things that occur. I don't know how they do it. They're very talented. They're prophets, right? They are very, very talented. And in my head, I'm like, I don't even know what my internal dialogue in me sounds like because everything I do is based on like an override of anxiety. And so I use them to help me make decisions. That was always my joke. Well, the funny thing that's not so funny about that is all of us have a gut instinct. All of us have intuition. Most of us don't know how to listen to it because we don't get quiet enough to pay attention. We don't respond when we hear it. And we don't think we're capable of whatever it is our intuition or gut is telling us. So the moment I started believing in myself because of how I was talking to myself, I started to listen to myself differently. And I felt like the more that I listened, the more I deposited money back into my trust bank. And what ended up happening was I stayed in relationships less and less that I didn't belong in. I started to look at how I spent money differently. I started to make decisions out of a desire versus a fear. And so like the world that I was starting to curate started to feel a little bit more easy. It started to feel a little bit more in rhythm. It started to feel less chaotic. It started to like feel like an exchange versus some sort of like pressured, um, rigid, like survival that you were fighting to get through. The third thing that I did was I regulated my nervous system. Now, our body constantly is taking in information, and it takes that information, and if not processed correctly, it holds on to it. So then the next time you experience a familiar feeling, even if it's a different setting, it puts that information in that other bucket, and now it starts to fill and overfill. That's why a lot of people struggle with anxiety and depression, because you are not allowing feelings and emotions to come up and out as they come. You're stuffing them down or not expressing them all the way, and then they get held in a bank until it's time for them to be expressed. So I use things like grounding, right? Getting my feet onto the grass, running my hands through water. I love taking hot showers. I pause before my reactions now. I move at a slower pace. I make decisions not out of necessity, but out of where I desire to go. And I only go when I feel like it's time, when I'm being told it's time. I use things like tapping and shaking in order to release the stuck energy. And if you're not familiar with what tapping is, you can Google EFT tapping or shaking as a therapeutic model for regulating your nervous system. They are amazing, amazing. And I do ultimately what continues to bring me peace. And I talked about this yesterday. My nervous system is regulated when I make decisions that are aligned. When I make decisions that are out of survival, or that are because I'm falling back on an old like self-sabotaging style of behavior like perfectionism or people pleasing, my nervous system is dysregulated. When I am in a situation or interaction with somebody and something feels out of integrity, I get dysregulated. So all of those are signs. And so maybe it means I need to back away and set a boundary. Maybe it means I need to stop that thing. Maybe it means I need to take a pause and reassess, right? But when you're used to living in chaotic situations, when you're used to living in that dysregulated state, the body just stops trusting you, right? Like you are making decisions logically, but the body also has to go with you wherever you go. And so if it's used to being constantly dysregulated in all these decisions, for me, it was like that constant state of anxiety in relationships. It was the up and down of spending money, not having money, spending money, not having money. It was the challenge that I had trained my body. We only make decisions from a fearful place. So like it's already dysregulated. So learning to regulate your nervous system is a superpower that allows you then to trust what the mind or what your body is saying. Okay. The last thing is I started to keep the promises I make to myself. Your integrity with yourself is going to be a necessary repair that you make in order to build trust. You have to be in integrity with yourself. I said I didn't want to have sex until I got married the second time around, and then I would go have sex. That's out of integrity. So why would I trust myself? I said this is the year I get out of debt, and then I got into $4,000 or $5,000 more debt. That's out of integrity. I said that I'm not going to choose from a fearful place, but then I stayed in something longer than I needed to. That's out of integrity, right? So you've got to find what you have to define what integrity looks like to you, and then you have to look at what areas of your life you might be out of it, because breaking that promise of integrity to yourself only has you question your decisions, and then you don't trust what you're doing. So this is making your decisions from a grounded place. This is making your decisions after careful consideration, prayer, and being led by God. This is keeping those tiny things that you say are very valuable and important to you and following through with them. It could be, I'm not eating chocolate anymore. Well, stop eating chocolate, boo. Stop, right? We're talking about, remember, the first step to trusting yourself is deciding you're going to trust yourself. You got to trust yourself. So get the chocolate out the house or learn to say no. Whatever it may be, you have to keep your promise because that promise to yourself is gold. It is gold. And it's going to be what has you continue to either roll the ball up the hill or fall on the ball rolling back down the hill where you have to start over and climb back up the mountain. Okay. So some of the things that I looked for when I started to develop this self trust again were the things that I used to make excuses for, right? So like words without action, inconsistency, getting in the car and driving to the store when I wasn't feeling my best. Now I'm looking at things as they are. What about within myself though? Because we can talk about like the red flags that we see in other people, but we all know that we're beautiful human beings made imperfectly. So we have some red flags ourselves. Okay. So I look at like, okay, the urge to self soothe. Nope. I got to override that because that's not going to lead to a behavior that makes me feel good. I stopped rationalizing behavior. I stopped shrinking. I stopped ignoring that butterfly yucky feeling that I would get when something was off. And when you start again to listen to these parts of yourself that are saying something, you'll start to know what they're actually communicating, and it won't just all feel like overwhelm or anxiety or uncertainty. Because self betrayal can lead to, we talked about this, not trusting yourself leads to more anxiety. It leads to emotional numbness. It leads to um, knowing what to do but not doing it. It leads to a loss of like your power, like you become unempowered. And this is where I see women gaslighting themselves every single day. We minimize our needs, we minimize our desires, we minimize our dreams, we say yes to things that we really mean no about. We say that, well, this is good enough, right? We think that especially at our age, it's too late. We might as well just settle for what we have. And that wanting more, especially wanting more at this age, is selfish. Why? Our minds are actually programmed to constantly want more. So why would wanting more ever be selfish? It's what we're programmed to do. But it's about doing it in a way that's not impacting or hurting people around you. That's selfish, right? But if you're ready for something, if you want to change, if you want to grow, here is your opportunity, sis. It is not too late. It is not too late. So I want to remind you that part of what's getting you sucked into whatever current chaos you're stuck in is that you don't trust yourself. Part of the reason you're not making the decision that you've been thinking about for a really long time is because you don't trust yourself. Part of the reason why you keep saying you feel stuck is because you don't trust yourself. And I have just given you the book that is going to help you take steps to get out of that place because you deserve to have the life that you ultimately want. Age does not matter. Life experience does not matter. The amount of loss you've gone through does not matter. And specifically, the amount of bad decisions that you've made does not matter. Those mean nothing compared to the amount of wisdom that you've gained over the years because of it, right? Am I right? I'm right, Brianna. Thank you. So I want you to look at how when you don't trust yourself, you are currently building a life that's matched by fear, right? When you have the trust, you can fall and pick yourself back up. You can desire more without being like completely delulu. You can um, you can bring more life into what your current circumstances are because you believe in the possibility, right? There's nothing that is lacking because you're not lacking when it comes to what you believe is possible for yourself. So rebuilding self-trust after 40 is way more than just what you actually rebuild or do. It has to start from within. It has to start with your heart posture for yourself first. So I'm excited to see where you go and what you do because you trust yourself more. You deserve to be louder, you deserve to be bigger, you deserve to be more successful, you deserve to be more at peace, you deserve to feel more at home within yourself. Okay? Until next time.